Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Bob Wheeler, CPA. He's also author of The Money Nerve, Navigating the Emotions of Money, and in addition, he is a stand-up comedian. Anthony, what were a takeaway or two that you had?
What I really liked is this was a different topic. Right? Because a lot of times we are talking about money and creating passive income, but what we're not talking about is the emotion side, right? Money is just simply a tool to help us achieve our goals. And one thing I noticed that with a lot of our clients, and I know I've even had this as well, like we have this issue with money, right? And a lot of times, particularly our listeners, if we're practicing infinite banking, a lot of times you may be the only one of your little circle who's doing it. Right? If you go home, or whether it's infinite banking, or whether it's starting a business flipping land, or starting to be a business, period, right? We're starting to do things that are different than maybe most of the people in your inner circle, including your family, are used to. So if you go, hey, I'm going to buy this rental property that I've never seen, somebody's going to manage it, somebody's going to do all this stuff, I'm just going to collect the money, or they're going to look at you funny.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult where we're like, wait a minute, Dad or my buddy Peter, doesn't like this. I mean, am I doing things right? And I think that's why you talk about how important it is to have clear goals. I know that's one thing we always talk about when we get on a discovery call is, what are your goals? And we need to make sure that your actions line up to those goals. Cameron, how many times is there a disconnect, right? Where they have these goals. I mean, a common one, I'm thinking a call I had on last week where they were like, oh, we're putting all of our money in our 401k, but I want to create some passive income. Should I continue putting money in my 401k? And, where the account, or if it's a policy or 401k, the important thing is the money in a place where it's going to help you achieve your goals. And when it's not, then you need to make a change. So that was one of my takeaway, Cameron, what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, what I really liked what Bob talked about when he was talking about truths versus beliefs. We've talked about that previously on our podcast, and we refer to it as facts versus opinions. Mm-hmm. But being able to identify truth versus a belief, or fact versus opinion, and then making your decision based on that. And kind of the way that he talks about it is some of the emotional stereotypes or stigmas that people have around money. And just a brief story that my wife and I have between us, and it's a funny story, and it's about her, so I'll tell it.
Nice.
Is that when she was a young girl, she went down to Mexico on a missions trip, and she went to buy this thing. I forget exactly what it was, but she paid, $10 for this thing, and then she went to the next stall, and the very next stall they were charging like $3. And so that was burned into her memory from a very young age. And we laugh about it now today, because anytime we're going to make a big purchase, it's all kind of brings up those same emotions, and she's always looking for a better deal. And I love that about her. But it's funny, right? It's just those things that you kind of have that you don't really know. And I think that this conversation with Bob will help some people identify some of those. And then obviously, if you want some solutions, feel free to reach out to him or just get into his book. So good conversation with him on some of the emotions that people have around money.
Enjoy the episode.
Take care. Bob, thanks for joining us. Why don't you get started and tell us kind of how you got to this point? I know you've got a pretty awesome background, author, CPA, and I believe a stand-up comedian. Maybe if you could touch on all those topics there briefly, and kind of tell us how you came to writing this book that you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started off with my life dream of being a lawyer. So that was what I planned all my childhood, through high school, through college. And met a few lawyers and thought, maybe not. And so I had been taking accounting as a backup just to help my grade point average, like most people. And so when I graduated, I had enough credits to sit for the CPA exam. And I just felt like that was a better way to go. I wasn't interested in more school. I was just interested in making money. And so I got into accounting. The interesting thing, though, was I could tell everybody else what to do, and I was doing terrible things with my money. I didn't have a great structure. Do as I say, not as I do, which was my parents' rule. And so basically, I was looking at my own financial choices. A lot of my clients were making choices that weren't actually serving them. And a lot of my friends were in the creative arts, a lot of stand-up comic friends. They also had issues around money. And I started realizing that there was a lot of emotional components attached. And even if you look at the stock market, things like that, emotions drive a lot of that. We just don't think about it. And so as I was having therapy sessions with my clients, looking at my own past history and having to look at the ugly truth of where I wasn't taking care of myself, I came across so many people feeling like they were the only person that didn't get the financial download, and that they felt very alone and isolated in their financial shame. And so I wrote the book really to start to let people know, hey, it's okay if you didn't learn. It's not too late. We can start learning now. Let's just pick it up and move forward. And to let people know they're not alone, that most of us, if not all of us, struggle at some point around finances. And most of us spend our time presenting and pretending so that nobody finds out our secrets.
I couldn't agree with you more. It was I was going to share in there is kind of what I've found over the years is that sometimes you can give somebody some pretty sound financial advice, and a lot of times they'll go out there and they'll do the exact opposite.
Absolutely.
Right. And for whatever reason, right, I don't have the expertise in the psychology or anything like that as a background. And so a lot of times I've kind of wondered why. Is that something that you've seen or touched on over the years?
Absolutely. And so a lot of it ties back to our childhood beliefs. And we might have blocks around money, but I've had several successful clients that should have pivoted and didn't do it because mommy and daddy will be really disappointed. Like, you're 45 years old, mommy and daddy need to get over it. Right. But that's such a strong tie. And so I see it over and over where a lot of it is related to how will people perceive me. My friends are going to judge me if I fail. Nobody can ever know. And so I've seen people go out of their way to spend or create a lot of debt just to keep the perception alive that they've got it going.
That's funny. You mentioned a couple of those things, and you've referenced your academy right before we started talking. But in there, you said that you're able to uncover and replace kind of outdated belief systems related to money, and I think you touched on one of them right there. Is maybe credit cards or overspending. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yes. So a lot of people, it's interesting. I have a lot of clients with high net wealth, and they'll tell me how broke they are. Right? They'll say, "I'm broke. I'm broke. I'm broke." And I'll challenge them to a reframe that maybe they're just cash flow negative at the moment. Like, it's not that they just don't have anything. They've got two houses, they've got real estate. A lot of people will overspend. And it's that simple: make more than you spend less than you make, right? That we just don't seem to follow. And so we do put it on the credit cards. People are putting their groceries on the credit cards, and then they're paying 18, 24, 29% interest on these credit cards that they're never going to pay off. And I'm astounded in Los Angeles at people that have 50 and 60 and $70,000 worth of debt, and they're not creating their own company. They're not using it to leverage certain things. They're just using it to pay groceries, and just trying to keep kicking it down the pipe.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, we always talk about, again, we follow Robert Kiyosaki, and he says, you spend money, you're going to buy one of two things. You're going to buy an asset or a liability, right? Asset brings money to you. A liability takes money from you.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to incur debt to buy assets. I mean, how many people we got on our show where they started flipping houses, had no money. They're using credit cards, or they started an Airbnb, but they're using credit cards. And I'm not saying that that's the best way to do it, right? But that's definitely one way to do it. But it's different if you're using it to buy assets. But just like you mentioned, Bob, people are just buying liabilities. They're buying the belts, the cars, the houses, the vacations. And a lot of times they're using debt.
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely what I call responsible debt. And I had a client who came to me, they had $100,000 worth of car debt, credit card debt, outrageous. And I realized they could get a HELOC. And at the time, you could deduct the interest on a HELOC.
Yeah.
So I said, man, if you go out and borrow $100,000, you can pay off all your debt and you're going to get a tax deduction. This is going to be sweet. He's like, great, I'm going to do it. I see him the next year. I say, hey, how's it going? How did that HELOC work out? Well, it's
Bob, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm wondering if I know what's going to happen next. Okay, that's going to be maybe they bought another car and their credit card debt is back up. But sorry, Bob, go ahead.
That's exactly what happened, right? All of a sudden, they had several emergencies. They had to take a vacation. They had to upgrade the TV. And the next thing you know, now they have $200,000 worth of debt. And I said to him, if I had known you were going to go out and create more debt, I would have never given you the tip. Because, and so I have to be careful with people. If I know that they're not going to be responsible, I do not give them advice that most people could take and use because I know they won't use it responsibly. And I'm just going to make it worse for them.
So, Bob, great point here. Because what we've, and I think it's kind of what Cameron had touched on when Cameron said he's given people advice and not following it. First, I assumed it's probably just Cameron, right? They're just don't.
I'll start there.
But I know he's given the same advice that I'm giving, so I know it's good, but I think what it is, it's that difference we're making, what one of my old mentors told me, people make decisions emotionally.
Yeah.
And then they use logic to to justify it. But I think that's why people aren't maybe taking all of Cameron's advice unless it comes to hair care. Because if you're not taking advice when it comes to hair care from Cameron, I don't know who's going to be better. But I think it's that emotional, or just like with the credit cards or that debt. Like, how do we fix that? How do we fix that emotional problem?
Well, we have to get clear what emotions are triggering us and what our belief system is. Because once you can get control of that mindset, or at least catch yourself, for example, like when I call the IRS, I get pretty angry. I don't like talking to the IRS. I get frustrated. They hear my voice and often hang up on me. But I know that's not going to change, right? So I bring in a staff person who's unemotional I'll just say, here, talk to my staff person. They have the conversation. They solve everything, because I get very triggered. I'll probably never get over getting angry at the IRS, but I can at least change the circumstance so I get the outcome that I want. And we have to look at what is our mindset. And I'll throw myself out again. When I was studying for the CPA exam, I went to this course and the guy said, look, if you don't think you're going to pass the exam, you should go ahead and stop taking the course right now. We'll give you back your money. And I laughed and I thought, well, I know I'm not going to pass, but I'm going to take the course because maybe it'll get me over. And of course, I failed the course. I didn't pass the CPA exam that time. But I never forgot that he was really clear that if we didn't believe we were going to pass that CPA exam, we weren't. We were going to get to be right. And so when we can catch ourselves and then reframe it, I am capable of passing the CPA exam. I've done all this work, or I am capable of making good financial choices. Once we can start to believe that, we can actually then put it in action.
I like that, Bob. Is a lot of times, right? I think you mentioned when you sit down with clients, I think you referred to it as a therapy session.
Yeah.
Earlier, right? I don't know if that was intentional or what, but a lot of times I've found what we do over the years is, when we're meeting with somebody, a lot of it is counseling.
Absolutely.
Right? A lot of it is talking about some of the emotions and the anxiety that kind of exist around money and some of the decisions that people are facing. We were talking about the emotions that revolve around money. And often what we find is kind of what you touched on there, Bob, was that a lot of times if somebody's not clear on where they want to do their goals and where they want to end up, is they end up just doing kind of whatever is presented to them. And a lot of times we come across somebody that has money in several different accounts or a specific account that don't really line up or match up with their goals.
Right.
And so a lot of what we do is kind of reprogramming and saying, hey, listen, you're telling me one thing, but your actions are showing me another. Right? Would that be another example of kind of what you're touching on?
Absolutely. What I try to do is get people conscious of what they say they want to be in the future. I want to have a house. I want to leave a legacy. I want to have this much in retirement. And then get them to make financial choices in the now that are in integrity with what they say they want. So if I'm out drinking every night saying I want to buy a house, but I'm blowing a few $100 every week, that money could be going towards the savings account for the down payment on the house. And to get people to stop and say, wait a minute, maybe I only need one drink, or whatever it might be, whatever that choice is where they're spending that money or going out with friends, to really do that reframe.
Yeah, it's that idea of kind of living in the moment, and then also kind of finding what that goal is and putting practical steps in place to kind of achieve that. I think.
No, Bob, one thing I'm thinking is that money is such a contentious issue, whether you're talking it with your spouse, with your parents, or people won't say how much money they make. Like it's very private. And I was curious and it creates a lot of stress, but I was curious, has this always happened through time? Has there always been this contention about talking about money and how to deal with money?
Well, I think it's always been there. It's just now with the internet and social media, things are a lot more amplified. So we see what other people are doing. We see how other people are spending. We see other people's successes. And a lot of times we're just seeing a snapshot. We're not seeing the whole picture. We see somebody driving a nice car. Well, we don't know that, that they're several months away from having that car repossessed, or that they inherited that money and their favorite, parent had to die to get it. Everybody's like, look, you got a great car. So, right, we're not seeing the whole picture. We're seeing the tip of the iceberg, to that point of all the stuff we don't see. And I think, we all are trying, through time, we've all tried to be able to say we have the most assets, we have the most goats, we have the most bags of salt, like whatever it might be. We've always had some kind of currency. It's just that I think now it's more obvious and it's more blatant because of the internet.
Do you also think with easy access to credit, like you could go down and you could buy $100,000 car just by signing your name, or you want that, whatever that is, you could get it on a credit card, or like that immediate gratification. How has that interpreted like how we view money?
Well, that has certainly put us in a lot of debt. I mean, I wasn't around. So back in the 50s and 60s, apparently we didn't have credit cards all the time. People put stuff on layaway. And then in the 70s, credit cards started coming out. Like now you graduate from college and you get like 5 credit cards. Like it's like, here, go spend. And I remember when I got the credit cards, I thought, this is free money. I get to spend $20,000 on these 3 cards. I didn't realize I was going to have to pay it back at high interest rate, but it was really cool. And so I think, we get sucked up in that instant gratification. Social media says you should have it now. Even when you watch ads, there was an ad was, don't use your money, just use a credit card because you're holding up the line, right? Just like slide that card, right? And we don't
social shaming,
that's social, and we don't feel the impact when we charge $100,000 or $1, right? You take $100 out of my wallet, and I'm going to cry, right? Because I don't want to part with it. But when I'm putting on a credit card, I don't feel it, and I think we need to get back to experiencing delayed gratification instead of instant.
Well said. Money's kind of become this intangible thing, right? But man, it certainly kind of runs us in regards to emotions.
Well, it does. We decide whether we're going to bring our lunch or have lunch with friends, whether we're going to pay for it, whether we're going to try and get them to pay for it. Do we split the bill? Do we buy gifts for everybody at the office? Am I going to walk to work? Am I going to drive? Am I going to drive a nice car? Am I going to take the bus? Will people judge me? Right? It's constantly, do I wear this shirt? No, I wore that yesterday. People are going to think I'm poor. We're constantly trying to figure out how do we position ourselves so that we look successful, and we're making financial decisions hundreds of times a day.
So when somebody gets in to navigate, the money nerve, navigating the emotions of money, what is that the stuff that's kind of in there? Is that what's going to be addressed? Is some of these social influences or more of the personal stuff, and or both?
All of the above. And
Okay.
we're gonna look at the emotions that charge you. We're gonna look at, so a lot of people feel unworthy. They get a job and they don't deserve it. If anybody finds out they're an imposter, right? Then they have to worry about that. There are people that would rather give money away than have to make a decision. If I have lots of money, I might actually have to say no to somebody or set a boundary, right? And so there's all these things that come with it. And so we start looking at that. We look at what our parents said and didn't say,
Mm,
and we look at, did we grow up in a culture that focused on religion or a certain ethnicity or group that had a certain belief around money that we picked up and said, I love that or I hate that. When you're a kid, you say, can I have a toy? You're greedy, or no, you're amazing, you deserve it, or no, you can't have it, but if you want to save up for it, I'll match you, right? There's so many ways to have these conversations. And if we can start to look at all those different events that happened in our childhood, we can start to then say, that doesn't work anymore. That's not true. But we create these stories that we think are truth.
mm.
And they're actually, most of them are just stories. And so once we can start to say, well, is that true? And does that really serve me? Then we can start to go past it. I use the cost benefit analysis, right? If I make a certain choice, there's a cost to me either emotionally or financially, and there's a benefit. And so sometimes staying small, not making investments, the benefit is nobody comes after me, right? But the cost is I don't get to get ahead. I don't get to stand up and be in my leadership. So there's no right or wrong. But for me, I want to live my fullest life. I want to help other people live their fullest lives. And so figuring out those blocks so we can get past them and reframe and move forward.
What's funny is you're talking about kind of the stories that we have. I was thinking of just my family and some of the generational approaches that we have to money. Right. If I look at kind of my well, let me speak generally, I guess. If you look at grandparents, is they were typically hoarders, right? Is
Right.
they were very tight with money. They never spent it. Man, I have stories of my grandpa, cutting up T-shirts from Goodwill and stuff to wear and to make. And then I look at kind of that second generation, which was very giving, right? Is, hey, I had a tough time. I didn't have this stuff. I want you guys to have it. And then I look at those two and I try to find kind of a happy medium
Yeah.
between the two of them and find some sort of financial, medium, I guess. So it's very true as far as kind of what you're saying in regards to my experience.
Yeah. And it's hard, people make it and they've got money and then they don't want to deny their kids. But at the same time, you don't want to spoil them that they're so entitled. I've got a client right now, they're in their fourth generation of this particular business that the great grandfather started. And a lot of times with the third generation, the grandkids are like, I don't want it. Just give me my money, sell it
Mm.
off. And in this particular company, the grandkids and the great grandkids are already being groomed. They have to work regular jobs within the company, but they know that one day it'll be theirs. And I see this business lasting for several more generations because they are really nurturing and teaching their kids about responsibility. Whereas a lot of people just go, oh, just give them the car, just give them the money, give them whatever they want. And that doesn't serve anybody really.
Well, actually, one of my questions are going to be I think a lot of our listeners are more of the higher net income or net worth, but they still make money mistakes, right? They may have made it, but that doesn't mean they're a great steward of it. What what are some of the main things that you see the wealthy or the high income people misusing their money, or maybe how they're r- explaining it to their kids?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that happens is I think there's, and this is not across the board, but I think there are
Mhm.
a lot of people that get a little cocky. And I've been guilty of this. I've got money, so I know all the answers. And so you get a little cocky and maybe don't realize that some of the wealth came from grandpa and grandma, or the wealth came from different places, right? That it wasn't, you didn't just get lucky with your skill set. There might have been other situations that helped grow that money. And so I think what happens is they can be a little cocky with it. I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to look at the details. They can get sloppy or careless because there's so much money. And so I see a lot of money get wasted on things. there used to be a boat in the marina. I had a boat, and there was a slip. The boat was paid for like 20 years. Nobody ever used the boat because somebody just put it on auto pay and forgot about it, right? And it's so much. Who cares? It's $500. So you get sloppy, and I think sometimes not wanting to have those difficult conversation with kids of saying, "You're right, Daddy's rich. You're not. how are you gonna make it happen? Because I'm not going to give it all to you." You got to teach responsibility, and I think it's important to teach them the value of a dollar and have those conversations so that they understand that even when they're getting and that they've got a lot of privilege in having this extra cash flow that other people don't, but to be responsible with it.
How do you, so you're kind of talking about some of the self-sabotaging things. How do you help somebody overcome those, right? So we've identified that we maybe have an issue or two. How do you overcome that?
So I go through with people, I get them to journal, and we talk through a lot of that stuff. Like what's the fear of having that conversation with your kid? Well, when I talk to my parents, they hit me or they shamed me. Or okay, well, are you going to do that with your kid? Are you, and so try and again get rid of what's not true, so that they can start to say, oh yeah, okay, I could do that differently. Or, oh yeah, I could stay in a difficult conversation. I do a lot of coaching with people where we do difficult conversations with husband and wife, parent to kid, and or talking to a business partner, and practice all the possible things that the other person would say and switch roles and stuff to start to get aware of, oh, here's where I'm coming from. Here's my unconscious point of view and so we bring it to light so that we can then say, yeah, let's do a little bit different. Let's stop being so careless with the money. Okay, budgets aren't that exciting. I like budgets. I find them exciting, but a lot of people don't. But to get people to say, yeah, I'm going to look at my money and I'm going to be more intentional about it. But I know when my money goes up a bit, I get a little sloppy. I have in the past. I'm like, I don't have to pay attention. And then it comes back and kicks me in the butt. And I'm like, oh, yeah, pay attention, pay attention. And so I think for all of us, it's really about paying attention without obsessing. Like you don't need to go to the stock market every 5 minutes going, is my money up and down and going crazy, but be aware.
Bob, you mentioned something. How does kind of what was going through my head is maybe it's just me, but I kind of find myself as like a box checker, right?
Mhm.
Like, man, all right, I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be frivolous with my money, or I'm not going to self-sabotage myself. And I think about it once. And yeah, I think you touched on it there, but if somebody comes to you, is there a group or something that they can plug into that kind of helps them continue to overcome that? Because I know that, overcoming these beliefs and those things is a very difficult process. Is that what they'll find if they kind of reach out to you, read the book, and then get plugged into what you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a Money and Vision group that meets every other week, and people talk about goals and just life stuff that comes in that keeps them from moving forward with their goals. That's a great way. And we've got a Facebook community. And certainly we want to engage other people in having conversations, because I think that's the biggest key, is actually feeling safe enough to talk about your finances with other people, and not getting completely judged for it. I've had people say, I don't want to leave anything to my children. I can't stand them, but nobody can know that. So I've got to give them all this money, even though I don't want to. Right. Okay, well, let's find a middle ground. Like give some money to charity, maybe give them a little bit, depending on state law. You probably want to give them something anyway, at least name them. But there's all these things that we don't want to admit to. And so the more we can start to have conversations and realize, oh, other people go through this too. Other people sometimes want to use their money to manipulate, or if you don't behave, I'm writing you out of the will. Okay. Sometimes we do that. I sometimes do that. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I'll say, well, I got the money, so I get to make the shots. And that's not always pretty to look back and go, wow, that's sort of a jerk response on my part. But at least I can be aware of it and say, okay, how can I try to be the best version of myself and be a little bit more compassionate about the way I deal with my money? And I think to have these conversations, and that's really what a lot of the course and stuff is learning to have these conversations with our spouses, with our children. I mean, I've had parents who were going to go bankrupt because they didn't want to stop paying for all their kids' expenses because their dad left and they felt guilty. And I'm like, your kids are in their 30s. You need to inform them that you're going bankrupt. Oh, I'm embarrassed, right? Learning to have those kinds of conversations.
That's awesome. One thing, Bob, I think with a lot of our listeners, they're starting to do things and their investments are different than probably their coworkers or their family members, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
they do align with their goals, but there's always that conflict when we go to talk to our buddies or, our dad. Like, what are some things we can do to help us make sure that we're sticking to be true to ourselves as opposed to the others?
Yeah, well, you want to be careful who your friends are, for sure. Certainly, when I have certain goals and things, I don't share that with my family because they're going to give me all the reasons why it will fail. And so I'm very selective about who I share with. And certainly, if there are coworkers that are going down a different, you can test the waters and sort of see if you've got people that are supporting you or saying, "Now that's interesting. I'm interested in doing that." But I always like to find like-minded people. And so if the people around me aren't working out when I test the waters, I'm going to find a new group of people to talk to because I want to find people that are going to support and challenge me in that new investing and looking at stuff versus somebody go, "No, that didn't work. My grandfather did it." Okay, things are different. So to me, it's important finding the right friends. And I remember when I first became a CPA, my boss at the time said to me, "Your friends are going to change. They'll need to change." And I was like, "No, no, 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 that's not going to happen." And how dare you? And he was right that some of the folks just really wanted to make sure that I stayed down with them. They didn't want to have to take responsibility. They didn't want to take risk. And seeing me go for things had made them take a look at themselves and they didn't like it. And so I had to let people go. I think a lot of people, or at least I had the belief that everybody gets to come with me. And that's not always true.
And we constantly hear that you're a summation of the top 5 people you hang out with.
Yeah.
And I think this was from Darren Hardy, the founder of Success Magazine, that said that your salary is the average of the top 5 people that you hang out with. And I've been trying to express that to my kids, like, because now, like my kids are in their 20s. So they're kind of breaking out from their high school, college buddies. And, when some are doing well and some are just doing the same, right? But you got to make that decision on who you want to hang out with, which can be tough. But it doesn't mean you can never hang out with those people. You just want to be more intentional with the other ones.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Completely agree.
Bob, for some of our listeners that may want a little bit more in identifying some of these old beliefs and then maybe putting a plan together, what's the best resource for them? Where can they find you at?
They can find me at themoneynerve.com or info@themoneynerve. And we do love to reach out and chat with people. We've got a lot of great resources that are free on the website. And certainly they can reach out and ask questions. And we're always happy to engage and help people get the tools they need to have the life they want.
Now, Bob, who is the Money Nerve for? Like, what's a situation where the person could really benefit from your program?
Well, I think it's people that have kids that don't know how to have conversations with their kids. I think it's people in relationships. I'm amazed at how many partners, husband and wife, don't talk with each other about the budget. It's only one person's job. I had a couple, very, very wealthy couple, from a culture that really, the first male son is super important. And he kept all the money hidden when they had the first male son, so she wouldn't become Americanized, take the kid and run. So millions of dollars, she has no idea where it is. Something happens to him, like nobody knows. And so it's anybody that is dealing with money and that feels like, I've got a secret nobody can know about, or I just don't know how to deal with this and nobody can know. That's the person, because all of us at different times have made some choices that we're embarrassed about, or choices that we're really proud of, but we couldn't tell anybody. And the more we can just get really comfortable with who we are and what we believe financially, the more we can just show up as ourselves and not have to apologize for it.
Bob, let me ask one more question, because you'd mentioned the B word a couple times, budget.
Mhm.
What have you found that works? The envelope system, or should people have a budget, or what have you found that works?
So it works differently for different people. I definitely love the envelope system. There are some great apps that work like the envelope system, that won't let you spend money on things other than what's budgeted for. So that's a great system. I love an old fashioned Excel spreadsheet and looking at my numbers in my QuickBooks. And
That's the answer Anthony was looking for. He's going to ask you for a copy of that spreadsheet.
that's the best. But I think the biggest thing is being honest in the budgeting. And so when I do workshops and we're talking about budget, I'll say to people, look, if you have an alcohol addiction or some other special need that nobody's allowed to know about, you got to put it in the budget. I'm not shaming you for it, but I need to know where that $500 is going a month. If you've got a gambling fixation or whatever, let's just be honest about it and budget it for it. Budget for the gambling, budget for the shopping sprees, and just really get in and be clear about where the money really goes.
Awesome, Bob. And if we're all honest with each other or with ourselves, is that we've all got some emotions that surround money and some stories that we tell ourselves. And I think your book and your resources be a great opportunity for people to kind of address some of those.
Well, thank you. I hope people reach out, and I'm happy to guide them through any of it.
Thanks, Bob.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob, and go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
Thanks so much.